Hello and welcome, everyone. We're really glad to have you here today for our weekly OCI deep dive. For those of you who might be new to our events, we are hosted on Cloud Customer Connect, which is our Oracle community forum for end users. And I'll be sharing some resources throughout the session today that will lead you back to those CCC forums. If you're not already a member, you can create a free account, join in discussions, post questions, and look for upcoming events like this on all kinds of topics. My name is Kenna Kettrick. I'm a program manager with the OCI go-to-market team, and today I'm joined by Zeke Kaufman, Principal Solutions Architect, and Aru Shanmugam, Senior Principal Technical Program Manager, and Jeff Shuey, Principal Product Manager, to walk us through OCI's integration with ServiceNow. That is enough from me. So Jeff, it's all yours. Go ahead and take it away.
Okay, thanks, Kenna. So as people start answering those questions, what we posted these for is to get a feel for what people are looking for from observability and manageability. So I see people clicking through, so thank you. That helps us understand not so much where we go today, but a little bit of that, and also where we go in the future. So Kenna, did you want to push the follow on in just a moment, or should we just let people keep answering for a sec?
They are all in one poll, so you are good to go.
Well, they are. Okay. Okay, good. All right. Well, thanks, and good morning, everyone, or good afternoon, good evening, good night, wherever you happen to be. My name is Jeff Shuey. I'm a Principal Product Manager, and I've been working with ServiceNow for a pretty long time. I think about a year and a half, maybe going on 2 years now. And a couple of things we're going to talk about today. My part will be very quick. I want to get you to the demo, but the one big thing customers have been asking for is a single pane of glass so that they could observe and manage their ServiceNow resources. And that's what we delivered. So this is going to be a pretty quick overview from me. Let me click to my next slide. I think it's clicking. There it goes. A pretty quick overview from me. What we just formally announced this week, and we just launched this week, it's available now and it's free, that's a key point, is the Cloud Provisioning and Governance. It's a long name, but Cloud Provisioning and Governance, Oracle Cloud OCI add-on for Terraform Connector. That's the full name if you're looking in the ServiceNow store, and you're going to see it in action today. A couple of things you get from it are, like it shows on the screen, you get broader CPG support. You now have multi-cloud access and multi-tier support. And as I mentioned already, the single tier of glass. We've been really happy to work with a customer out of the UK, Network Rail. They manage and run the entire UK rail system, and they've been using OCI for a long time and ServiceNow for a long time, and have been working I was going to say aggressively, but collaboratively with us to build out and test solutions that we've made. So we always are, of course, looking for more customers too. So if you are using ServiceNow and OCI, we'd love to hear from you. But the main thing you're going to hear about today is the new release, and you're going to see it in action. And a couple of quick use cases. There are detailed notes in the slide notes, but I'm not going to go through all of them. But the main key points are that it's cloud agnostic. So if you happen to run on multiple clouds, which of course most businesses do, we are trying to make that as easy as possible. So the new connector adds both observability and manageability. And like I said, you're going to see that in action today. And the idea is so that you have consistent management across your multi-cloud environment. End users can provision things if that's how you've got your ServiceNow installation set up. Obviously, everything needs to be governed. And of course, you want monitoring and discovery so that as you're building out solutions, you can make sure that it's doing what you expect. And if it's not, that you can use manageability to adjust them on the fly. I'm going to look at the poll real quick to see if there's any particular things that stand out. So single pane of glass is important. Multi-cloud support's important. And actually, it looks like everyone wants everything except other. So the good news is we basically hit the highlights, and I'm glad to see that people want the things that we've built. So Kenna, do we need to stop that poll, or does it automatically stop by itself?
No, I got you. You can keep on going.
Okay, I'm going to take it off my screen then. So use cases, you'll hear more about those. You'll see them in action today. And my last slide is the next one, and it's just the highlights, and I know it looks kind of busy, and apologies for that, but there's a lot to cover. But the key things are that the connector is free, so it's available on the ServiceNow store today. The link is on the page here. Don't go get it yet. Wait and see the demo and see what it's all about. But the link is on the page. Of course, it's in the notes, and it's in the blog that is going to be published in the chat window, so you'll see more of that. But the idea is one dashboard to see everything, and so the goal is to make multi-cloud as simple and straightforward as possible. If you don't happen to have the link, you can always search for the shortened version, Oracle Cloud add-on for Terraform. Our ultimate goal, as I just said, is to have mutual success. We think that about half of our Oracle customers are also ServiceNow customers, maybe a little bit more. If you are using ServiceNow, if you're using OCI and you want to connect them and haven't done that yet, help is available. We have support teams on both the ServiceNow side and the Oracle side that definitely want to talk to you. If you haven't started a proof of concept, I recommend or suggest you do that today. So key things are ServiceNow Connector is free, support's available if you need it, and if you haven't tried it out yet, build a proof of concept today, and we're available to help as you build that out. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to my colleague, Zeke Kaufman. And please ask questions in the Q&A. Myself, Zeke, and others are going to be monitoring the conversations there. And I saw somebody already asked me about my dog, so thank you. But we'll talk about ServiceNow going forward. All right, Zeke, take it away.
Okay, thanks, Jeff. All right, so what's up with this image, right? This is a scene outside of St. Mark's Square in Venice. It's a rendering of Galileo Galilei demonstrating its first telescope to a group of Venetian lawmakers. So the reason why I use this image is I think it's a good analogy. I like to use analogies to help me understand concepts that maybe I haven't learned about or I'm still trying to understand. And I think this is a perfect example of something that can be used to help understand the service that ServiceNow provides. I'm a bit of a history buff, a history of science especially, and I really do like this picture. It's Galileo used this telescope to discover the moons of Jupiter and the fact that our moon had craters and mountains on it. Of course, the Venetian lawmakers had a little bit more interested in its military applications, but nonetheless, this is a pretty famous rendering and a famous time in history. So, Jeff, can you click the next slide? So bringing this scene into a more modern context, you can think of your Oracle Cloud resources as being the objects in the sky, and ServiceNow is the telescope that provides visibility to those resources. In this picture, I've given the general label of cloud engineer to the people in the audience, but these are potential customers, they're potential partners, they're potential independent software vendors who are now enabled by ServiceNow to migrate or lift and shift their workloads from an existing cloud provider to Oracle while maintaining their familiar outputs in their ServiceNow environment, like their audit outputs and their service mapping. So I thought this was a good way to kind of draw an analogy as to the service that ServiceNow provides. Jeff, next slide. Okay, so just a brief kind of roadmap and how we got where we are today. The relationship between Oracle and ServiceNow first started back in the beginning of 2001. Quickly followed up by a proof of concept that went successful. And so phase one of the Oracle and ServiceNow integration completed back in April 2021. That was with the ITOM or IT Operations Management Discovery module or application. This allowed ServiceNow to discover your Oracle Cloud resources and populate the CMDB and do sort of a dependency mapping and inventory on resources that were deployed. Since then, there's been a series of steps forward in the overall integration effort. In October, we had event management integration. So this allows your ServiceNow environment to detect events and alerts that are configured in your OCI tenancy. Just this past February, there was cloud migration assessment. I'm going to speak to that a little bit, but in essence, that provides guidance and support in migrating your on-prem Oracle databases into the cloud. And then the focus of today's talk is the cloud provisioning and governance manageability. So this is just recently released. This is the ability to manage, deploy, control the entire life cycle of resources deployed in your OCI tenancy from your ServiceNow environment. We do have things that we're working on going forward. We're looking for XCS discovery capability, as well as discovery of resources in GovRealm. So these are roadmap items that don't have dates on them, but will be worked on in the near future. Jeff, next slide. Okay, so just to speak to how this works a little bit. In this diagram, you have like your Oracle resource, your Oracle OCI tenancy on the right, and your ServiceNow environment on the left. The way this kind of works is that it uses OCI REST APIs. So the ITOM discovery services uses those API calls to discover all the configuration items in the OCI stack. This would include things like compute resources, your VM and bare metal machines, networking resources, storage volumes, and Oracle databases. In this image, in this diagram, I have the mid server as sort of being in this quasi mid space between ServiceNow and your OCI environment. This mid server sort of acts as a go-between. It's the communication channel between the ServiceNow environment, which populates the CMDB with the API request responses, and the service and your Oracle Cloud environment. This mid server can exist within your OCI environment. It can exist as an independent server running on-prem. It can exist wherever you want it to, but it's a critical node in this communication channel. So that's how the information is exchanged, and that's how the discovery and manageability functionality is performed. Once the CMDB table is populated in the ServiceNow environment, the sky's sort of the limit at that point, right? This is when you can create relationship maps. It will have the population of all discovered resource items, and you can do this sort of interconnectability and mapping between applications, networks, users, and all the various connected systems within your cloud environment. Okay, Jeff, next slide. Okay, so this slide's a little busy, but I just wanted to give you a little bit of an insight into what we mean when we say like a single pane of glass. So here we have your Oracle environment with your cloud resources that are deployed. These things get discovered, they go through the ServiceNow environment, the CMDB gets populated with the various configuration items and all the resources. And at this point is where you can kind of produce your sort of output. You can do your inventory and auditing, you can do your dependency trees, and you can do sort of alert correlation and incident response. And Jeff spoke to this earlier, but like some use cases here, right? You have organizational level auditing. So you can use the discovery logs to determine ownership of resources within your OCI tenancy, what departments or what organizations within your enterprise own those resources. That allows you to do sort of cost analysis and inventory and auditing on those resources. You also have event notification and incident response. So for example, when a web server or database server goes down, this event can be immediately captured and a customer notified. And customers can integrate these alerts through the notification service to do alert correlation or binding or a particular incident response. Automated event handling and management in response to these events is on the roadmap. So that's not the automated event handling for particular events isn't a current feature. That's another one that's going to be in the roadmap for future implementation. There's also asset management, right? So imagine a deployment with 5 VMs where 4 of the VMs are using less than 20% CPU usage, or a suite of VMs provisioned with 8 gigabytes of RAM and only 4 could easily satisfy operational requirements. Asset management and utilization metrics enable organizations to reconsider deployment designs and optimize their compute and storage and networking resources. Jeff, next slide. Okay, cloud migration assessment. The cloud migration assessment is a new feature. It was just released this past February by ServiceNow. It's not a feature I personally have used yet, but I did want to briefly touch on it just in case someone out there wasn't aware of it and might have some interest. So in short, cloud migration assessment assists in the migration of on-prem Oracle databases to the cloud. It collects information on hardware, your apps, and your server configuration to evaluate a best practice migration approach. So, the idea here is that cloud migration efforts can be difficult and they can be resource-intensive tasks. Tools like this help mitigate risk and ease the process of lift and shift adoption of the cloud for your company. So, yeah, I haven't personally used this, but this is something that was asked for and is greatly used for companies who are looking to migrate from their on-prem to an overall cloud adoption strategy. Okay, Jeff, next slide. I'm not going to speak to all the points here, but I just wanted to give a little bit of a high-level overview because Aru is going to give a demonstration, but I just wanted to speak to some critical aspects about manageability from ServiceNow of OCI resources. So of course, there's sort of like this day one setup, right? There's the initial installation. You need to have the cloud provisioning and governance, applications installed in your ServiceNow environment. You also need to install the OCI Terraform connector add-on. There's some basic installation setup procedures there. You also need the mid server. So I spoke to this earlier. The mid server is critical in terms of communicating from your ServiceNow instance into the OCI. That's sort of an additional day one or setup thing. There's also Terraform. So Terraform is the tool that's used to perform the actual deployment of resources. So you need a Terraform provider. There's various ways this can be set up. You can use Terraform Cloud, which is a free service. There's also Terraform Enterprise, or you can also use Terraform on a local installation on a box, depending on your preferred method of setting this up. So there's a few options there. You also need to import your catalog item. So a catalog item is the actual Terraform that's used to deploy a particular resource or set of resources within your OCI tenancy. These would typically be stored in a source code repository. It can correspond to a single resource item, or it can be a more complex deployment, which has multiple VMs, multiple networking. But we refer to these as configure items, and this is the core of Terraform code that is imported into your ServiceNow environment to deploy a particular resource within OCI. And then, of course, there's the actual provisioning and creating of the stack. So we put this in there because there is various ways that enterprises and organizations and companies can implement this. Some people call these things like service catalogs. You can have various levels of approvals that are required. So an individual within your organization can request the deployment of a catalog item, or you can set it up so that it's automatically deployed, but depending on like levels of permissions. And then once these things are deployed, then you would perform another discovery to get a total all-encompassing eye of that, which is deployed into your all the resources that are deployed in your tenancy. So this is meant to give kind of a broader sense of like the requirements to get this working. With that, I will finish, and then I will pass over to Aru, who will perform an actual demonstration of having configuration catalog items in your tenancy and then deploy in your ServiceNow instance, and then deploying those into your OCI. So handing it over to you, Aru.
And Aru, I can stop sharing when you are ready to start sharing.
Sorry, thank you, Zeke. So we can leave at this particular slide for 1 minute.
Okay.
Before I share. Yeah. Welcome everyone. My name is Aru Shanmugam. I'm the senior technical program manager with OCI, and I was involved in the ServiceNow integration aspect. So in this demo, we'll see, especially in this, like relate to this slide. So first 3 steps are more of an installation or one-time installation and configuration. We won't cover that in this demo because it will be time consuming. So our focus will be on creating a catalog item as a cloud administrator, and then how individual users can request resources to be provisioned through those catalog items. As Zeke mentioned, each catalog item corresponds to a Terraform template, which is stored in a code repository, such as Bitbucket or GitHub. So we'll see today more of a GitHub and Terraform cloud integration when it comes to how the templates are consumed. And we'll go through that all these individual steps in the demo. I'm going to share my screen now.
I'm going to stop sharing, and you're in control now, Aru.
Okay. And are you able to see the screen?
Yes.
Okay. So before we get started on the provisioning aspect, I just wanted to show the discovered resources in my tenancy, OCI tenancy, what resources are. Our focus will be on the bottom 4, which is a subnet, the network interfaces, and the virtual instance and the cloud network. And if there are additional storage resources, that also will appear here. So this is basically more of a before picture before I go to the provisioning. We'll come back and see after picture if time permitting. Otherwise, we'll focus on the provisioning part, but we have other places where we can see the progress. So with that said, I just want to quickly see what are the prerequisites. So quickly on what you will see when you're downloading the app, in addition to the application being installed in your instances, you also will have this installation guide, wherein it talks about the different steps as part of the installation. So this is a part that we won't be covering today, but these are well tested in terms of what the prerequisites are and how you would go about configuring the MIT server, how you would configure the Terraform provider, and also the source control aspect. So with those steps being completed, I wanted to start with how a cloud administrator on a day-to-day basis, when they have a request to create a catalog item, how do they go about doing that? So you have 3 different interfaces. I just open all of them just for ease of navigation. So you have a cloud admin portal. So we have a cloud user portal, and then there's a regular ServiceNow interface, and then the cloud user portal. So the 3 things that we'll be basically switching to see the progress. And I also have the Terraform cloud setup. This is where we'll see the Terraform progress. And then I also have the GitHub where I have the Terraform template, all the Terraform templates stored, and I'm also showing the one that I'll be using. This will work in the OCI always free tier as well. So if you're trying to test it, you should be able to easily test it even with always free OCI tenancy. So the first step is in the administrator's side, when they're trying to create a catalog item, they're going to go to the design part. I'm going to create a new catalog item. So as I mentioned, I already have set up the provider. So this is the one that links to the Terraform Enterprise, and then it also links to the correspondingly links to the GitHub repo as well. Once I have that set up, now I need to pull in the template because you may have several templates stored in the GitHub. So I need to pull in the corresponding one. I'm going to locate the one that I'm interested in. This is the one I'm interested in. So I located that. And then I submit. So this has loaded the corresponding template. So I want to look at it, whether it's the right template that I'm looking at. So it's the right template. So I can see from what I meant to pull it in. And it shows, because again, you may be familiar with the Terraform templates. I'm making an assumption here. But in the template, you basically the template has got the complete set of resources that you want to provision. But each of the resources will have specific custom variables. Because, for example, it could be keys, it could be what type of VM you want, how much is the storage you want. So it's left to the administrator on how they design the template. And so those variables, while provisioning, meaning when the end user is requesting this catalog item, the end user has to supply those values. So in this case, there are 6 of those variables are there. So you will see those appear when we are basically going to the user experience aspect, when the user is requesting that catalog item. So now I'm happy that this is the right template. I'm going to activate that template. As Zeke mentioned, all the communication is happening through the MIT server. So the validations and then communicating this to corresponding components and the service components, all that is happening. So once that is done, so this template is good. So I want to make it active so that it can be requested by end users or cloud users. So it is activated now. It's an active template, you can see. So this is it. Administrator has created the catalog item. Once the template is all tested, and then they're comfortable making it available for cloud users. Now I'm going to go to the cloud user experience. So as a cloud user, you see that's a familiar language when it comes to Terraform or resource stacks. So the ServiceNow uses the same terminology here. So the cloud user is familiar, meaning is aware that the catalog item is available. Now they can ask for that to be provisioned. So they do that by clicking on the cloud stack, or meaning the start stack, and then they know what are the different items. So they know that this is the item that they requested, or they're going to request, or administrator has provision in the ServiceNow side. But now they are going to request that stack based on this template. So I have set up, I think I already mentioned, I want to repeat, but so already these accounts are already set up, cloud account for OCI. So I'm going to be using those ones. So I don't have to recreate it here. I'm going to name the stack. And these ones are for basically tracking purpose. I'm going to leave it empty. And this one is for the Terraform workspace. So I'm going to use a new workspace. A new workspace. I don't have an existing one. So this is with respect to, so I gave what the cloud account is, which is OCI here, and then what data center in OCI I'm going to be provisioning. And this is basically my own name that I gave for the stack. And that's all. That's the 3 things that you have. That's the must ones. And then user group is based on the available user groups here. So once I do that, then I'm going to be taken to the next one. So this is the one where you saw the 6 variables that we saw there. I think the region is already taken in, I think with the default. But the remaining 5, you have option to change it. So now I'm going to leave these 3 as default. And I'm going to get the values for these 2 fields from my store here. Just give me 1 minute. I'm going to pull it from here. So compartment, this is the OCI one. It's a OCI compartment OSIT. And then for the public key, I need to pull it from my side. Sorry about it. So this is a key that I will be using for the instances that I'm creating so that I can SSH to those ones. This is a SSH public key. So this is the one that user will have to provide. So once I gave this variable values, I'm going to submit that request. So request is now submitted. So I am using a default approval step here. So I need to go through an approval process where this request gets approved by one more person. So for that, I go to the regular interface, look for the pending requests. But this also you can configure in such a way that it's auto approve. But I wanted to show that approval process if you're basically going to have that kind of governance. I'm approving this request. So once approved, you will see that it is basically reflected here. The cloud request has been approved and it is starting the process. So from here, this is where the communication is through the MIT server and then to the Terraform Enterprise, which I already have set it up here. So you can see the request that I initiated, that request has reached here. This is the Terraform Enterprise where I already set up, and that is the configuration that I showed, the Terraform provided configuration in the ServiceNow side. So now the new workspace request has come, and then within the request, sure, there's some issue that I have here. Let me see what the issue is. There's some in 1 minute. It triggered some new. Okay, I can probably switch to. I already have a recorded one. It looks like Terraform triggered some kind of a new installation this morning. So it is trying to locate something. I think it's going to be, okay, let me use my recorded version because I think there is something it triggered. It's a tested flow. Let me switch to the recorded one. Give me 1 minute. Sorry about that. This is basically, I need to go and then find out why it is. It's on the Terraform side, meaning the cloud account side. Stop sharing.
The laws of live demos.
Yeah.
Yes. Yep.
No, that yesterday night it worked. So this morning something has triggered. Okay, let me.
While I was switching over, if people have questions or things you've seen or like to see, certainly feel free to ask them in the Q&A. We've seen, I think, a few questions there, but we always want to see more.
I looked at the error and I couldn't really locate what the issue is. I'm going to retry the same request again and see whether there's any difference. So since we have seen this part, I'm going to skip over to the specific part. So I'll probably start from here. It has come. I'm going to be approving the request. I should see some change here. Approval has come. So I go back to the Terraform, looking at the stacks with the workspaces that have come. Okay, it is here. And now it's doing the planning. I think this is what, if it was perfect in our case, it would have come to this step, where the first step is the planning, and then it gets into the applying phase. So the planning, it does the working correctly. It appears that I did not choose the right tenancy or the provider, and that is what the problem is. So plan is done. Then either I can confirm and apply. I think it really automatically kicks in after a minute or so. I'm going to apply. Yeah, it did. Yeah, it did come back after 1 minute. Wait for a minute, then it gets in. So you will see that the Terraform is progressing well. So the plan is done. Now it's doing the apply step. So all the resources that I've asked for as part of the template, they're being provisioned now. It probably takes 3 to 4 minutes to complete the provisioning. We'll see the progress here. Once the provisioning is done, we'll do the discovery, and then you will see that it is there. And also at the end, I'll show the deep provisioning as well. So you are able to say that you can not only provision it, but you can also deprovision a stack after its use. It will be useful in more of a test scenarios. Want to spin up a few resources and then test it out. Once the testing is done, then you can release it. So we can also, while we're waiting, we can also go and look at the cloud infrastructure. If we did the search again, we'll see that some of the instances are getting provisioned as we speak. So you can say that there are additional ones that are getting created. You can also go sort by the time created. So you can see the Phoenix have been created, the public IPs have been created. So all of them are basically together, we see. And then the two VMs that we already asked for, already provisioned, you see here. So now it is into the load balancer as well as the database. Those are the two additional ones. So let us go back to the Terraform and see where we are. It's still doing it. It's still provisioning. I think you can hear well on the commentary part of it. So it has completed the provisioning. Now I want to go back and then do the discovery and see what has changed. So it does, let us go back first and then we can look at each one by one. So it does take few seconds additionally before it updates the status, stack status. It's polling for completion, so it takes few moments before it does update. This will get updated. Let's go back to the OCI and then do the discovery, since we know that's already done. So let us go to the discovery schedules. And we have, I already have a discovery schedule created, discovery profile created. So I'm going to edit that just in order to run it more of real time. So it's all working, so I'm not going to waste time testing it. So I'm going to be focusing on just discovering one center or one region that I know that that's where my always free tier is there. I want to run it immediately, so I'm going to be using this finish and run part. So it started the discovery. It takes probably a few moments before it does the discovery. We'll go and come back here. So we looked at the cloud, the user portal, what the update is. It's still showing as processing. I'm thinking of just to see whether I can do a refresh and see what happens, whether it shows. It's still waiting for the provisioning update. I'm not sure why there is delay. Just completed everything, apply is complete. So for some reason it is slow to update the status. Meantime, the discovery is running. So we'll probably wait for a few seconds here. Once the key thing is that once the provisioning on the Terraform side is complete, then especially the schedules are more of running in a regular interval, then you don't really have to do it on an interactive basis. But for the demo, I also want to show the results from the unless this is complete, I'm not going to be able to. Let's see whether we can go to the stack. Yeah, I think it has come now. Okay. So we go to the stack, and then if I look at the demo field one. So this is the name of the stack. And as I mentioned, all the resources that are not supported by the regular discovery they're all mapped as just cloud resources in the CMDB, the ServiceNow CMDB. So by adding more additional scripts, we can map them to be specific type or specific classification. For now, they're all mapped as just cloud resources from the stack. But when I run the discovery, basically we initiated that. Yeah, you can see here. So when I run the discovery, you see that change in the numbers. I think we had different numbers earlier. So we had one network, now we have two networks. Availability zone didn't change. The number of virtual machine instances are 5 now. The cloud subnet is 3. And then the network interface cards is also 3. So we have 3 missions, so it's showing us 3. Now images, this may not be significant or relevant to us because these are basically the VM images. So this number, you can see that the additional discovery that has happened after I ran it. So I can go into the details of each of them and what they are if I get into the individual details. I think that is on the advanced view when I look at it. I think that's where we saw. So you can see here all the discovery side, all of them are here. You can see that free instance, instance server, these are the ones that are identified as devices part. So you can, I don't know whether you have the type, the CMDB type is there, and you have the class, what class it is, it's an image class, a data center, or what they are, virtual machine instance. So these are the ones supported classes. Look at it. So you have availability zone, cloud service account, cloud subnet, cloud network, data centers. So as we support additional classes, then we will see those resources also being added. I think those are the key. The provisioning we saw, the requesting we saw, and then the discovery after provisioning that also we saw. I can quickly show the deprovisioning step just to see that it's supported. So I go back to the cloud user portal, and there I go into the stacks. I click on there's a stack that I created. Here I can do a select stack operation, which is a deprovision operation. I'm going to say OK and do the deprovisioning. So here now I need to approve the deprovisioning by going to the requests. You see that already the request is pending. I'm going to approve this and update it. Once I do that, then you will see that is triggered here. You see the deprovisioning is approved. It is triggered here. If I go to the Terraform part, I'll see that there's the new request that have come. You can see that the new request, it will show up here. A new run will come. So you can see that there is a deprovision request that has come, and it is in the planning stage. And I can see the details of that. It's going to say that since I've requested the full thing to be destroyed, it's going to say that I'm 20th to destroy. If I wait for a few seconds, it's going to get applied, but I'm going to just force it, say yes, and then I'm confirming the plan. Now it's going to go ahead and then apply. So once this is completed, all the resources that were created are provisioned earlier will be deprovisioned. And it is very much like a Terraform destroy function. And then it's fully reclaimed from a billing perspective for the customer. I think that concludes my demo in terms of we talked about the provisioning, we talked about the discovery, and also we talked about the deprovisioning of the stack. Okay, I think good that I had the recording because I didn't want to be debugging in front of all of you. With that, I think that concludes the demo part of my presentation. So any questions again, Zeke, that came up on the specific steps?
No, there was a quick question that said for basic integration from OCI to ServiceNow, how long does it take? Days, weeks.
Yeah, it
And
could probably be a couple of hours. I think main thing which we have seen is the requesting those plugins sometimes. I think two of the add-ons or plugins that are prerequisites, you do have to get them approved and then installed by ServiceNow side. So that scheduling part is what took time. But otherwise, if you had those ones approved, then actual integration, the steps, that installation steps is like maybe a couple of hours, less than a couple of hours.
Yeah, and Miguel is asking right now, does the discovery also work with Exadata? And Zeke already talked a little bit about that. The plan is it doesn't currently. We're actually planning on working with ServiceNow to test that out. So they have to go through their test suite to make sure that basically it's working as expected. But Zeke or Aru, if you have other things you want to add about Exadata, feel free.
no, that's correct. We're just still waiting for them to implement that on their side and trying to work with them to provide them with the rack so that they can begin dev testing on it. And yeah, as of right now, that's just a feature that doesn't exist.
Yep, but it's coming. That is coming along with Gov OC2 initially, and probably OC3 in the not too distant future. OC2 meaning FedRAMP DISA IL2, and OC3 is FedRAMP DISA IL5. If you're in the government space, you know what those are. Okay, so should I take back over? I've already taken over the screen. I have the demo on the screen, which everybody should be able to see. But I also wanted to jump into two last slides. And there goes. There's two last slides I wanted to cover. So a call to action for Oracle folks, partners that are on the call, and of course, end customers that might be listening, is key thing is it's free and it's available. So the full name is up there, the Cloud Provisioning and Governance, Oracle Cloud OCI add-on for Terraform Connector. It's available today in the ServiceNow store. So if you're current, I believe it's going to be 2 levels back, but initially, and then over time, it'll be current plus 1 level back customer. You'll be able to get that and start installing it. And as somebody had asked, how long does it actually how long does it take to install? Not long at all. How long does it take to do discovery? Again, it's literally minutes to get it started, and depending on how big your network is, VMs, storage, et cetera, that you have out there, it can take a little longer, but it's available now.
But again,
Zeke,
on that point, the scheduled discoveries, when you do it, then you don't really know it does happen immediately. In the sense, like you don't really have to follow up, right? You can schedule them, so even if it takes a couple of minutes, you are not like waiting for it to happen.
Yep, true. And the second point on this slide is there's a technical blog available that's also out there today. Zeke and Aru worked on that. It's published and available. The links are there, and I think they've already been published in the chat window, so you may have already checked it out. So you can find you don't need to copy the link for the blog from here or for the connector itself. They're available in the blog. And then the last point here is the cloud migration assessment. That's something that ServiceNow has built. And there was a slide that Zeke spoke about, and it's also free. It's a way to sort of vet what you might be migrating, and it's a quick way to see what's happening in your deployments, and of course, ideally to pull those into the ServiceNow single pane of glass. And I want to go back to this last slide again. This is the one I showed earlier, so I'm not going to go through every detail, but what you saw was kind of the 5-point overview. You saw resource discovery, syncing with resources, all in a single pane of glass, one place to manage resources. And I think we talked a little bit about applying management rules, but that's where Terraform can be kicked into high gear to make it possible to automate tasks, either for discovery or for high watermark, low watermark. There's a lot of things you can do within Terraform to set up rules. So the main things, though, it's single pane of glass, it's one dashboard, and again, right in the middle, it's free, available to customers today. We want you to get started on it. If you have questions, if you have issues, if you have concerns, we want to hear about those. And the main thing is if you haven't tried it, get started. And if you run into issues with the ServiceNow team, the Oracle team, we're here to help. And I think that was my last slide. This next one's Q&A, if I remember right. Yep. And we already answered some of the Q&A, and I think we're right at time.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much, folks, for coming out. I'm going to launch one final poll just to get a little bit of feedback. Again, this is a pretty standard one for anyone who's joined us before. But I want to say thank you to Jeff and Zeke and Aru for sharing this information. And thank you to everyone in our audience for sticking around and asking questions. I did drop some information in chat about the replay, as well as the links to the application and the blog and some information and everything like that. And that's also going to come your way in an email, and then will also be available on the CCC forums for checking out later as well. So do go check this out. If you have any questions, there's places to go ask those questions as well. And we hope that you can find something new and cool in this. And then potentially we'll have this team back when we have some more updates to this service. We can talk a little bit more about it then. So thanks so much, everybody, for this, and we'll see you at our next event. Have a great rest of your day.